Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome to really one of the most spectacular chess games that I've seen in my life. Welcome to a crazy gameplay by Revenge against Stockfish 16 in a wild Moscow variation of the Sicilian Defense. And I have to warn you, this game will last for 138 moves, so it's a long game, but I guarantee you this game again has everything. First of all, epic, spectacular tactics, spectacular opening theory of the Moscow variation of the Sicilian Defense, then really beautiful tactical sequences, but also then really a cool rook versus 2 knight chess endgame, which has, I think, its own rules in my opinion. Again, a game that has everything that we love to see in a spectacular chess game for sure. So let's dive now into the game with the white pieces. The Revenge engine open with move e4, the fish responsible c5, knight to f3, d6 modern stuff, bishop to b5, the Moscow variation, and now knight to d7. Stockfish covers now with the knight, wants to keep still the light square bishop on the board because you notice this d6, e7, c5 pawn chain is on dark square, so that's why you should try to keep your light square bishop on the board. Stockfish is saying I'll try to keep it and then kick away your bishop with the move a6. Here Revenge continues with d4, c takes d, queen to d4, a6, and now bishop to d7. Very interesting line, has been played many times in chess history. Nothing wrong about that, because after bishop to d7, now White built this amazing Maroczy bind pawn structure. It's of course not like the usual, like the common Maroczy bind, but with the main strategic plans like in the Maroczy bind. Look at this, we have already the pawn on c4, already the pawn on e4. Eventually the knight will come on c3, will have a great grip around the square d5. Queen is centralized, very hard to push away the queen from this centralized square. If you play something like e6, then of course you have a d6 weakness. So although White lost the bishop pair in the early stage of the game, White has, I think, strategically a good game because of the spaces that White gained in this early stage of the game for sure. So nothing wrong, as I said, the position is about equal, but of course Black has the powerful bishop pair. If the bishop pair comes somehow into the game, then of course Black should be better. But what should he do? Here Stockfish plays now a very interesting sideline, plays now the move e5, which again leaves now the d5 square unprotected. Very huge weakness, I think, here for Black in the continuation of the game. But Stockfish is playing in sort of a neither style with the move e5, kicks away the queen from the center of the board, doesn't want to tolerate any activity by White pieces in the center of the board. Here Revenge continues with queen to d3, stays connected with the queen with both of the pawns, the pawn on c4 and also the pawn on e4, and now Stockfish plays now the move b5. In chess history, many sidelines have been played. For instance, an amazing game played by Magnus Carlsen against Vichy Anand back from 2013. For instance, Magnus continued immediately with the move knight to c3, then Vichy took, then Vichy played bishop to e6 and had, I think, a solid game. The game eventually ended with a draw. This was here the continuation between Magnus Carlsen and Vichy Anand. But now after move b5, instead of knight to c3, here Revenge played an interesting sideline too, b3, which is also perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with this move because Revenge is trying to, of course, to keep still this pawn on c4 and then eventually to jump with the knight on c3, then of course to put more pressure against the weakness on d5. So Stockfish continues now with the h6. Very important move, is not tolerating any activities maybe by Black. Bishop to g5, knight to g5 and similar stuff. Knight to c3 here by Revenge, going for the d5 square, but also attacking now the b5 weakness. And Stockfish continues now with a beautiful plan with the move knight to f6. And this is now, I think, must-know theory for those who maybe are facing this Moscow variation with the Black pieces, because actually it seems so that you could lose maybe the pawn on b5, but it's actually not something that should bother you, because after a takes b5, knight to b5, now you can play queen to a5, and look at this, after something like knight to c3, you have this resource, knight takes e4, and now if the queen takes, then a queen to c3 is going to happen, and actually Black is much better here. I would dare to say Black is even winning here. So instead of this move knight to b5, you could maybe try here the move bishop to b2, but again with the move b4 expanding on the queen side, I think again Black should be much better. Knight to a4 is of course not possible, this square is taken, so in my opinion not a good continuation here for White. So that's why White has to be careful around the square b5, because there are several taxes, especially when the king is in the center of the board. Bishop to e3, good move here by Revenge. Actually, this move is also theoretical novelty. Good move, I think, centralizing the bishop, controlling now both of these diagonals with this powerful piece. Stockfish continues now with bishop to e7, castling, pretty equal position, I would say. Nothing wrong here for white, nothing wrong here also for black. Black has, of course, the bishop pair, but we have to say this is not the optimal bishop pair because so far the bishop on e7 is always a little bit stuck to the defense of the pawn on d6. Doesn't have so far good activity. The knight, for instance, on c3 is a more flexible piece in these types of positions. Here, h3, played by Revenge. Again, a good move, I would say. Not allowing some stuff like bishop to g4, bishop takes f3, messing up the pawn structure in front of white king. So Stockfish continues now with queen to c8, puts more pressure also against the c4 weakness. And now, again, there are several options. Here, again, you could try maybe this line, c takes b5, a takes b5, knight to b5, but then knight to e4. Again, deflecting the queen from the defense of the knight. You could maybe try the move a4, but I would say again, good position for black. Black can play bishop to c6, queen to b7, and similar stuff will eventually liberate this long diagonal for the light square bishop. I think much better position again here for black. So that's why for queen to c8, again, you see it's not so easy for white to take out the pawn on b5. That's why here knight to d2, played by Revenge. Stockfish continues now with the move b4. We have knight to e2. If you continue here with knight to d5, then actually after knight to d5, c takes d5, bishop to b5. Here I think again black is a solid game, can eventually go into this line, maybe even trade off the dark square bishops, going something like this, queen to c5, queen to c5, d takes c5, and hoping for the best with this 2 versus 1 pawn majority on the queen side. I would still say pretty equalish position. Well, white can hold this position, but unpleasant maybe to handle this 2 versus 1 situation on the queen side here for sure for white. So that's why after move b4, again, Revenge is trying to keep the pieces on the board. Doesn't go for the hop on d5, and maybe tries also to occupy in some lines the weak f5 square in black's position. We have now knight to h5. Stockfish goes also for the f4 square. We have king to h2, and now queen to b7. And now you see how Stockfish slowly but surely exploits the light square weaknesses that were created in black's position, especially for instance when this bishop comes on c6. Then you have an e4 weakness, maybe in some lines, of course not immediately, but in some lines maybe f5 could be also a goal, then putting more pressure against the g2 pawn. So many flexible options now for Stockfish, but I think we have so far seen really great opening theory, because many of us, I think, could reach, of course not the same, but a similar position, and then you want to know what to do with the black pieces. So after queen to b7, we have now the move g4. Revenge is not tolerating any activity by the knight on h5. Stockfish continues with knight to f6. Has now several options, maybe even to play bishop to g4, knight to g4. This tactic is, of course, always a long-term problem in black's camp. Maybe not in white's camp, pardon me. Maybe not immediately, but really it's always there, somewhere in the air. This tactic could happen, so white has to be careful around the square g4 for sure. We have now the move a4 by Revenge, and now b takes a3. The problem now for white is that you cannot play rook takes a3. Because then d5, and I think game over here immediately. Rook is hanging here. Then if you step back, then we'll take out this pawn, maybe push it pawn further. There are again these problems on light squares. The position is finally open. That's the position that you want to get, of course, for the bishop pair. I would even dare to say completely massive position here for white for sure. So after b takes a3, rook to a2, now a5 by the fish, and now rook from f to a1. Interesting choice here by Revenge. Revenge is now hoping after potential rook to a3 and d5 to simply give up the rook on a3 and then get a powerful center with maybe this 3 pawns. So here Revenge shows, I think, also a great attacking style. It's trying really to force sort of an exchange sacrifice to get a central pawn storm here of its pawns here, especially connected also to the pawns on the queen side. And now the real fun starts, I would say, here in this particular spectacular game. Stockfish continues now with the rook to a6. Stockfish anticipates the possibility that this rook could be maybe shifted over to the square g6, where it could maybe attack somehow also white's king. And you know, this is really the common signature move by the fish. Rook lift, and probably this rook will create madness all over the board. So now revenge goes for this idea. Rook to a3 allows here to move d5, but actually revenge takes. Revenge says, show me what you got. Take out now here the rook on a3 if you like. I'll play rook to a3, and I will have here really a beautiful 3 versus 1 situation on the queen side. Really powerful pawn storm that could come. But Stockfish is a different monster. Stockfish says, okay, I have my time to take out your rook maybe on a3, but I don't care. I'll first of all play on this tactic that I've prepared previously, played now bishop to g4. Really wild stuff. And that's now the tricky part about this move rook to a3, because the rook is coming now into the game through the square g6. So now after bishop to g4, h takes g4, knight to g4 by the fish, we have king to g2, and now only now bishop to a3, rook takes a3, and now we have queen to e7. Stockfish attacks first of all here the rook, and is hoping now to get finally the rook on g6, where it could create, of course, madness here against white king on the g file. What should you do? If you try here c5 immediately, could be playable, then actually you get destroyed. This wasn't playing the game because I really wanted to show you how dangerous really this rook to g6 move is. Maybe you're trying knight to g3, then f5. Look at this crazy stuff. You're trying knight to f5, knight to e3, and the game is over. So f5 is really the mean preparation here. You can cover maybe temporarily with your knight on the g file, but f5, f4, maybe even e4 if necessary, are the common breakthrough motifs here for black. What you could try instead of this move knight to g3 is to play the move king to f1, but then queen to h4 is destroying here a white's position. Queen to h1 and similar stuff could happen. So again, game over. I'm showing you this because c5 in the beginning seemed to me like really a tempting move for white. I thought, okay, this is the way to go. You're connecting two very powerful passers here. They're mobile, they could destroy you, but actually the move rook to g6 is causing too much damage here in white's position. So that's why after queen to e7, we have now the move b4 by revenge. Really crazy moves that the engines are playing. First of all, what revenge is trying is to deflect the queen from the attack of white's king. But now actually revenge makes, I think, the first mistake. At least my Stockfish engine at home evaluates now the next move by revenge as a mistake. Here revenge played now the move rook to b3. And the problem about this move is actually that you're basically forcing again the queen to retreat, when we saw queen to e7 activates again the queen. So you gain the tempo, but actually with this tempo you didn't help you out. This tempo only help your opponent out, because now again rook to g6, queen to h4, and similar stuff is going to happen. So again, huge tactical problems for white. With this move, as I said, you simply helped out black, but a better choice was to play the move, maybe the move f3, and now for something like knight to e3, queen to e3, now maybe rook to g6 can happen, but you can hide. And after king to f2, I would say maybe here this position could be played here for white after move a4. Okay, black has still this dangerous pawn on the a file, but at least the king on f2 is pretty secured, I would say. It's not so dangerous, I think, to play now this position with the white pieces, especially with both of your knights in front of the king. So they are covering, of course, many squares. The king is surrounded by the knights, and I don't think that anything wild could happen in this particular continuation. But after queen to b4, rook to b3, and now again you helped out, as I mentioned, in the activity of black's pieces. Here, revenge is trying now to move c5. Now we have seen the pattern, rook to g6, again with some dirty stuff, knight to e3, and similar stuff is working. But now revenge came to the idea that it could play maybe the move d6, simply trying to attack the queen. And now we're running into a very wild tactical sequence. First of all, knight to e3 here by the fish comes, of course, with a check. King to f3, the queen is hanging now by black, so that's why queen to a7. What should you do? For instance, here for many of us would even play the move queen to h4. Seems even more tempting, maybe to play aggressively with the queen, but Stockfish played now the correct move, queen to a7, because after queen to e3, actually queen to h3 doesn't bring you so much, because we would reach a similar position like previously with this move f3, and here even white should be slightly better. Now I'm not seeing good ways how black should attack this position further. This pawn is pretty solid here. The knights are again surrounding white's king. The rook is controlling the pawn on the a file. The pawns are rolling here. Very, very dangerous stuff. Look at this. Queen to h4. A pretty active move would actually cause really too much damage here in black's position. So really crazy stuff that's going on now on the board. After king to f3, that's why queen to a7. And Stockfish had here a different idea in mind. Look at this. After queen to a7, queen to e3. Now Revenge is getting the piece back. Revenge has now 2 knights for the rook. But now Stockfish plays, I think, the most brilliant move of this particular game. Maybe just for fun, if you want to practice middle game ideas, maybe pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for black. Pretty hard to see. Very, very aggressive move here by Stockfish. So try to see now really the best continuation. Okay. Here Stockfish played the amazing e4. And that's actually the only move that keeps the advantage, a slight advantage here for black. Every other move is not so good. For instance, you could try a4, then rook to c3. Would actually, this move a4 would actually help out white in the continuation, because actually now the rook is supporting these two passers, and it's a different story. So that's why e4, it's sort of a forcing move. When you're the attacking side, you have to keep your opponent occupied. And let's see now options. What can you do? For instance, you can try knight to e4. This wasn't playing in the game, but now f5. Look at this. You're trying to escape. Now queen to a8. You're trying to play king to f4. Look at it. White continues to get the king closer to black's camp. Now you're getting simply destroyed. Look at this. You can just prolong the game, but after a couple more moves, the game would be over. For instance, you could try maybe here to move queen to e4. After move here e4 by black, you could try maybe here queen to e4, but then queen to c5. And if in any case white loses, I think these two connected passers, this is not a good position anymore, because white is simply relying on the mobility of these two pawns. Then afterwards, maybe try to support them with the rook, maybe with those knights. But then after knight to f4, look at this, rook to f6, and the game is collapsing, I think, simply here for white. If you try here king to e4, let's see also this option, then you get this one, rook to e8, and game over again here for white. So see, you cannot actually, after move e4, you cannot take the pawn. That's the beauty about this really, really aggressive move here by the fish. And actually, this move is forcing now the king to come on a weirder square, on the square f4. Stockfish continues now with f5, but still very unpleasant position also to play for black, because black has to face now really these two connected passers here in the center of the board, and also on the c file. We have now rook to b1. Revenge is trying to get, of course, the rook somewhere else. You could maybe try here rook to g4, but it doesn't bring you so much. Look at this. Stockfish didn't play here rook to g4, because actually this move is helping out white to escape. Really, really crazy position. You're trying maybe to push the pawn, and after king to d4, there's not a good way anymore for black to attack the king. So you see, after move rook to b1, again, black has to be careful what to do, how to proceed here. And Stockfish again plays now the best move, of course, plays now the move a4. Is saying, I don't want to waste my time just to maybe deliver one check. It actually improves the position of the king. So that's why Stockfish is saying, I have now a pass pawn, and also I have a pass pawn on this side of the board. So now the position is a little bit stretched. So you see, we have now pawns on both sides, and these are outside distant pass pawns, which are very, very hard to catch for the knight. So the knights don't love, of course, to play against distant and outside pass pawns. So that's why Stockfish is realizing this endgame technique is going simply for the potential promotion on the a file, or if possible, maybe here on the h file. So we have here knight to c3. Stockfish is getting the rook behind, queen to d4, and now e3. Very, very tricky move. Look at this. If you play f takes e3, then rook to g4 traps the queen. If you try something like queen to d5, this doesn't bring you so much, because again, you see all of this potentially active moves by any side are simply improving the position of the opponent. So now after king to h7, f takes e3, you're attacking the knight. Look at this. A3, you're trying queen to f5, then this one is hanging, you maybe trying king to f3, then we simply play rook to d8. So this pawn is rolling very, very tough then position to play here for white. So that's why after move e3, here Revenge played a beautiful counter attack, played now the beautiful move d7, and that's also the only move that's keeping white somehow in the game. d7, progressive idea. What should black do? What should Stockfish do? Stockfish, of course, delivers a check because now the pawn has advanced. Now there is a new check possibility. King to f3. Look at this crazy king by white. The king was all over the place already, and it will be still all over the place till the end of the game. After king to f3, rook to d8, we have queen to d5 check. Again, king to h7, and now queen to f5. But the issue about this move, queen to f5, is that actually now Stockfish can also take the pawn on d7. And again, in this battle, in this trades of pawns, actually I would say white lost because white had the only power, these two connected passers here in the center of the board. Here, for instance, if you try e takes d2, this wouldn't be so good because after rook to b6, you're getting really pressured here. So Stockfish again played the correct idea. Rook to f8, you can maybe try takes, and now after queen to d7, I would say very, very complicated position to play for both sides. This one can be promoted. This pawn is rolling. The rooks can be traded off. King is so weak. This king is weak. I think this line is too complicated now to proceed. But that's why after queen to f5, as I said, Stockfish played now the correct move, took the pawn, not the knight here on d2. Here, Revenge continues with queen takes e3, queen to c8, we have queen to e5, and now queen to a6 going for the d3 square. Queen to f5, Revenge is covering that, queen to c8, we have queen to e5, a3. Stockfish is pushing the pawn further. Nothing spectacular, but it's unpleasant, of course, to handle your opponent's pawn that's already on the third, maybe on the sixth rank from the opposite side. If it gets advanced on the seventh or second rank, already sweaty hands you have for sure. So after move a3, we have now knight from c to e4, we have a2, rook to a1, and now rook to a7. You see how important it was for Stockfish in the beginning to push the pawn. Now it's far advanced, and it's always neutralizing a little bit here white's rook's activity to play here. So we have now king to d3. Revenge is going now really with the king all over the board, is trying to bring it somehow onto a secure place. Stockfish, of course, continues with queen to d7, king to c2. The problem here for white is also that you cannot cover actually with the queen. If you do that, then rook to a3, you're trying to cover, then we deliver a new check. You're trying to do something like this, check, you lose maybe this pawn. If you lose another pawn, look at this, now finally two connected passers here, still this one to handle, king endangered, this rook can be included. So again, I would say very, very tough position to play here for white. Again, rook to g3 in some lines is possible if the queen moves somewhere. So again, good choice here after queen to d7 also to play king to c2 instead of covering here with the queen. We have now rook to e6, check, g6 here by Stockfish, and now Revenge finds, of course, this fork. Stockfish retreats, here Revenge takes, but of course also now Stockfish takes the queen, and we have reached now in move 50 the fully endgame stage. And I think this game is really beautiful because we have seen really beautiful things. We have seen great opening theory. We have seen now this immortal tactics. We have seen this endangered king position, rook versus two knight position, and similar stuff. Now this endgame is really tough to play for both sides, because if somehow maybe white grabs these two distant pass pawns, then the game could be over, because in the fully endgame stage, two knights should be actually better against the rook. But Stockfish is relying, as I mentioned, onto this stretched position that has now pawns on the a file but also on the h file, so the knights have a tough time in order to catch them somehow all over the board. So here knight to b6 played by Revenge. Stockfish continues with h5, knight to b3, h4. Stockfish is just pushing the pawns, getting also for the c5 pawn. We have now knight to c4, and now rook to d5. Good move here by the fish. You cannot take, of course, the rook to c5 because of this idea. Knight to e6. Game over here for black, actually. So that's why Stockfish is careful. Rook to d5, king to c3, h3. Stockfish is pushing the pawn further. Revenge is doing the same. We have now king to g6, knight to e3. Stockfish retreats, and now knight to b5. Rook to a6, going for the pawn. c7. Revenge has also pretty advanced pawn here. Stockfish is forced now to go here. Is now, of course, supporting now also the pawn on the h file. We have now knight to f1 and now king to f7. Really cool stuff because h2 you cannot play, of course, because of knight takes h2, rook takes h2, and then the promotion on c8. So after knight to f1, we have now king to f7, king to d4, and now, of course, Stockfish is going with the king closer towards the action. Knight goes back, we have rook to h4, new check, here Revenge retreats, and now a new check simply by the rook. Revenge has to retreat, but of course now rook to c4, good really technique with the rooks here by the fish. Rook to c4 attacking now the knight, but also attacking the pawn on c7. We have knight takes a2. At least Revenge grabbed one of those pawns, annoying pawns on the edge of the board. Rook to a6. Stockfish temporarily pins now the knight to the rook. King to d3. Stockfish grabs the pawn, and now rook to e1. Beautiful idea here how to get, of course, out of the pin by the rook on the a file. Stockfish retreats. Here Revenge is going with the knight. You see rook to a3, rook to c1, covering everything, and now Stockfish is of course going with the king towards this side of the board. But so far, Revenge is holding the position. It's not allowing this pawn to be advanced. Very, very still tough endgame, I would say, for sure. Knight to h2. We have king to h5, rook to c2. Stockfish delivers a check. Revenge is going closer with the king. Rook goes here on the g file, and now knight to f3. Here Revenge improves, of course, a little bit the position of the knight. We have rook to g2, king to f4. Revenge is going closer with the king. Rook to g8, and again a couple of repetitions, king to f4, but now rook to g4. Good move here by Stockfish, because here actually you cannot take the pawn on f5. Stockfish calculated everything in a good way. In some lines, for instance, if you're not careful enough, you could be checkmated after a couple more moves. There's simply no good defense. I wanted to show just one potential line when the king is maybe running here towards black side of the board with the support of the king. Actually, the knights are too far away from the action. As I said, black is winning this game for sure. So king to f5 here in this position is not possible here for white. So after rook to g4, that's why king to e3. Stockfish is staying with the rook on the third rank. It's not allowing, of course, Revenge to play with the knight on c3. King to e2, and now a beautiful move. Rook to g1. Of course, you cannot take knight to g1 because h2, and then the knight has to move. Game over again here for white. So after rook to g1, that's why knight to d5. We have now rook takes f3. Great move here by the fish. What should you do? If you play here king to f3, then after h2, we have knight to f4. You cannot catch anymore this pawn. The promotion comes, of course, also with a check. Again, game over here for white. So that's why after rook to f3, we have rook to c8. Revenge is going now behind with the rook. Stockfish is pushing the pawn further. Check here by the rook. Again, a new check, again a new check, and now Stockfish finally goes towards this side of the board, but now Revenge can take out the pawn on h2 finally. And you see now, still nothing is clear. It should be winning, but very, very tough to play. Rook, two rooks we have here. Two rooks we have here against the knight and the rook. Still two pawns on the board. Very, very intense, still heavy endgame here, of course, for both sides. So here, after rook to a3, knight to f4 check. Stockfish goes here. Revenge delivers a check. We have now king to g7, and now rook to h5, rook to a5, protecting, of course, the pawn on f5. If this pawn is lost, obviously, then it's a draw for sure. So that's why Stockfish has to be careful about material. King to f3, Revenge is again getting the king closer. Rook from g to a1, we have a new check. Stockfish escapes, and now here Revenge brings now the king into onto a more secure place. We have rook to b5, now an improvement of the knight. Stockfish goes active with the rooks, new check, and now new check. After a couple of repetitions, Stockfish goes finally with the king here on e5. Rook to g8, we have rook to a4, rook to e8, again a couple of annoying checks here by Revenge, and now rook to f4, rook to e3, rook to e5, trying now to trade off the rooks. Actually, here's the problem. After move knight to e2, what black cannot do is to play here rook takes e3. Rook takes e3, f takes e3 is actually a draw, because you see white can always build some kind of a blockade around the square f4, and will eventually get the king on f2, for instance, if the rook moves somewhere. So in order to win this endgame, these pawns have to be on the same file. So the pawn, what basically black is trying to do is somehow to trade off the rooks, but to keep both of these pawns on the f file and play sort of a rook versus knight chess endgame. But if the pawns are on opposite on different files, actually it's not a winning endgame after potential trades of rook. So black has to be really careful what to do also in this particular endgame. So rook to b4, we have king to f3. You see again the rook takes e3 is not working because f takes e3 leads into a drawish position. Very crazy stuff. Knight to g3, rook to f4 check, king to g2, rook to b2, knight to e2, attacking now the rook, new check by the fish, now improvement of the rook, trying of course somehow to get an activity here. Knight to g3, rook to f4, king to g2, rook to g4. Revenge is trying to repeat moves, but now finally rook to f4, kicking away the king from this active square, rook to h4, king to f1, and now rook to h2, not allowing here white to have access to the g2 square. We have now rook to e2. Stockfish goes now finally with the king closer. Rook to king to g1, attacking now the rook. Rook drops back, and now rook to a2. Here, if you try rook to e3, this wouldn't be good because of rook to g4. White has to be also careful about this kind of stuff. Rook to g4 and then f4, for instance, is winning the game. So that's why after rook to h8, here rook to a2, Stockfish goes with the rook here, king to g2, rook to g4, rook to a1, and now king to e6, rook to b3, and now finally, after a couple more moves, when here Revenge tried, of course, to kick away black's king, finally Stockfish found a good plan. Stockfish is finally activating the king. It was very hard for black to activate the king because we saw white was always having some checks, could always improve the position of the king, but now Stockfish has finally access to the square g5, and that's now the most important part. You cannot even compete with something like this, because then moves like rook to b4 are winning, because we have said the pawns are on the same file. So now a simple rook to b4, I think, would simply win the game. So that's why here after move king to f6, king to g2, Stockfish finally had access now to the g5 square. Rook to a5, rook from the third rank to b5. Now of course Revenge is not trading off the rooks anymore, and now rook to e6, knight to f1, and now f4. Stockfish is breathing finally. You see now the pawn is advanced, the king is very well placed, the rooks are very active, the king is a little bit endangered, the knight has also taken the natural square for the knight. So suddenly Stockfish is creating some space. It's really an amazing endgame technique here by the fish. So knight to h2, we have king to f5, rook to a3, rook to g6 check, the king drops back to f3, and now rook to b6 again with the same threat to play rook to g3 and force trades of rook. So that's why king to g2, Stockfish activates now the king towards the center, knight to f3, but now rook to g6, trying of course to deflect now the king from the defense of the knight. Rook to g8, we have now knight to e1. The problem is now you cannot play something like knight to d2, then king to f5. You're trying maybe to get it here, you get checked, now you get a new check. Look at this new check. Then you attack the knight has to escape, we go for the knight. You see black would simply continue the attacking full, and actually in this line the knight gets even trapped. Very wild stuff. So crazy position for sure. So after move king to rook to g8, we have now knight to e1. Stockfish gets the king on f5, knight to d3, rook to d8, attacking now the knight. We have now king to g4 here by Stockfish. Really good score for the king. If you try something like f3, this doesn't bring you anything, because after king to h4 you can maybe try this one, but now actually you're running into even a checkmate sequence. You have to go somewhere here, and then rook to b1. Again, game over here for white. So that's why after king to g4, knight to e1, rook to b1 here by the fish, knight to f3, rook to g8, and now after knight to d4, rook to d1 was played by Stockfish, and actually in this particular position, the revenge engine resigned. So what's the issue? Let's see options. You may be trying knight to f3 again, but then king to f5 comes with a check. You have to step back. Again, the king gets very well placed. You're trying to do something like this. Look at this. Knight is attacked. You're trying to cover. Then this one is going behind. So black simply gained too much activity here. Really interesting ideas how Stockfish slowly but surely improved the position of the rooks, of the king, of the pawn on f4. Slowly but surely managed to win this very tough endgame here with the black pieces. So okay, I'm sorry this was a little bit long one, but I really wanted to show you this beautiful endgame. Also, as I said in the beginning, great opening theory, then immortal tactical shots all over the board. So this game had everything. It's, I think, sort of a game for every time. I think this should be really memorized game. This is really spectacular how Stockfish can dominate in any stage of the game. So in my opinion, really one of the most spectacular chess games that I've seen in my life. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more epic, brutal, sharp, tactical, epic chess like this, check out our Come to Chess Games Played by Computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we see in the end? Chess is the best, of course.